Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Robotics. My name is Nicci Rossouw. My guest today is Mikhil, who is the CEO and founder of FAMASO, and they're, of course, also network members of Robotics Australia Group. So, Mikhil, welcome. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to have you on the podcast.
Nicci, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you today.
Fantastic. Like, we've had a good chat before we started. Hit the record button. And just to fill in our audience here, I was telling Mikhil, my son is about to graduate his PhD thesis in organic chemistry. So anyone in Australia needing a very, very smart organic chemist, my son is now. And we were laughing that I'm living vicariously through my son, and I will now be Mother Dr. Rossouw going forward. So I'm quite happy talking about all of this because my children never listen to my podcast.
It's a pleasure to be talking to a mother doctor today, which doesn't happen often in my life. It's the first time I've ever come across one, and I'm excited about it. So to be interviewed by a mother doctor. Wow.
Fantastic. And to all the other PhD listening to this, you're all, of course, doctors in your own right. So, Mikhil, all jokes aside, tell us a little bit about your background and the business.
Sure, thank you. Look, it's a little quick story about my background, where I've come from. Born in Mumbai, came across to Australia in 1998 for a better life. India at that time was pretty behind with opportunities and stuff. Now it's a different world altogether. Came to Australia to become a pilot, really, as a childhood dream. Became one, but never had the opportunities in there. So did several different jobs. Eventually got into the corporate world, and did the corporate world for a few years. It wasn't my cup of tea. I was always looking for new challenges. So started a food business called Tiffins. Had no experience in business, of course. So 4 years later, I successfully failed. Told my wife one day, got home and said, we're almost bankrupt. How does it feel? Obviously, she had no choice. She was like, okay, I don't know how to feel because the last 4 years I've been living in pain anyway.
So, no difference.
No difference. Thank you. Finally got to know that you're out and stop losses. Then because survival was important, so I became a window cleaner at the time, and learned the window cleaning sort of industry, and realized that that service industry is full on relationships. And for me, I love relationships, building them, because I think people buy from people. Nobody buys product or service. That's my philosophy anyway. So from that, I started window cleaning business called High Clean from my garage in Melbourne, Altona, and I had to ask my wife's blessings again because I'm taking her another roller coaster drive. So she said, well, at least this time you're not going in knowing is this a lettuce or a cabbage, which is a good place to be. So at least I know what the window cleaning squeegees look like.
Yeah.
So that started High Clean 2013. Because of the experience in the industry I knew, we quickly sort of grew to interstate in 2014 and then national in 2018. Business was obviously, I knew the industry really well. And then 2020, obviously COVID hit. And then COVID, helped us change our business again to become a more COVID cleaning. Couple of years, good business after that. And then we sort of had a couple of downturns for 2 years or so. And then now we're on the trajectory moving forward. So definitely, It's been a great journey.
So we should now actually just pay kudos to your wife at this juncture of the talk and tell her how fantastic she is putting up with all these experiments of yours.
Absolutely. I mean, I've taken the day I married her, I said, are you prepared for a roller coaster ride? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, because it's sort of my life story anyway, because she comes from a bit more stable background. I come from a bit more insane with financial. And she goes, oh, we'll see what you bring in. And fortunately, she's still with me, which is amazing.
Fantastic, and congratulations. So tell us a little bit about FAMASO and why you decided to incorporate drones in the business.
Look, Nicci, I think the challenge, the business that I run in is high risk cleaning business and high risk maintenance business. So we have all the rope access guys, machine guys on access on the roof, working at heights. So the risk is part of our core services. Obviously, we cannot eliminate risk. We only can put a control measure and reduce the risk. But the unfortunate part is risk will always exist in this industry. So for me, I was looking for the last 5 years an opportunity to come up with a different ways to do it, reduce the risk or even eliminate it. There were talks around the world about drones coming in. That's the 5-6 years ago, I went searching for in Brazil, US, UK, China to find a better service for drones. They were all pretty rudimentary backyard operation. They weren't commercially ready. 2022, KTV Working Drone from Norway, who's also an old window cleaning company for 30 years. For the 10 years, they've been doing R&D for drones in window cleaning. And 2022, they went live with the worldwide sort of rights for the countries. As soon as I saw them online, I didn't need convincing because I had no idea, as usual process of mine, go in and then figure out how to do anything. So the risk was high, but I thought, I know the industry well. Maybe it's too early, maybe it's too late, I don't know, but I'm going to take it on board. So I bought the master franchise for Australia, and that was the start of the drone service, really. That was an unknown I'm walking into 2.5 years later, and here I am talking to you.
Well, congratulations, number one, in taking a very brave and innovative step. Now, I always look at these window cleaners that I see scaling these high rises, and I'm assuming they've got like a specific personality type to be doing this type of work.
Look, I mean, they do a lot of work, they do a lot of hours, a lot of experience, skill sets required, but also it's a mindset that they have because you're going on a building, getting on the ropes, you're coming down the ropes and you're sort of doing that day in, day out. So the fear of heights is not there. So they're quite a different species, I would say, in the industry, quite switched on because obviously every move is calculated, the risk analysis and everything. So I've got the guys in-house. So we've got rope access team that's internal. We've got 3 level 3 guys, a few level 2s, because they are the guys that actually make sure that they're legally responsible for the team on site. So very different team, but absolutely amazing guys to work with.
Okay, so let's unpack it now. You bought the business. So number one, how did you integrate it? And then talk us through like what types of building facades that you manage. But let's start, like, how did you integrate?
So when the drone officially 2022, I bought the master franchise for Australia. But if you think about it, I had absolutely no idea about drones. I was not even a baby. I was just not even an enthusiast. I just knew that service will come. You know, that just shows the amount of movies I've watched of those American Hollywood movies, knowing that the drones are coming. So I thought,
I'll be back.
I'll be back. I said, I'm not back. I cannot come back. This is it. If I fail, I cannot come back.
Your wife's going to forgive you, but you're not.
She
but
won't
anyway.
be back. I can guarantee you that. She's on her way out. No. So in 2022, I knew this was the way to go forward. How to do it, absolutely no idea. So I thought, well, let's figure it out. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I'll fail again. So that wasn't the scary part about, but I knew that somebody had to take the leadership of going in, trying and see potentially failing, if not how it's going to work, because the industry has to happen in Australia. So it took me about 1.5 years, 2 years to even figure out what the CASA regulations were. How do we do documentation for them? What's process? I mean, even though I had pilot background 20 years ago, it's different now. The world's changed. And learning about how the van setup works. I mean, the guys from Norway just said, here's your drone, figure it out. And it's like, okay, figure it out, all right, because we can't just wake up and start cleaning. So we need a professional setup of the vehicle, professional setup of pressure washing unit. We need a fit out of the van to look amazing. The drone operation systems have to work. Software has to work. The pilots, the guys have to be pilots. They got to know how to drive it. So it was such a big learning curve for me as an individual, and the business obviously followed my lead, that it took me 2 years to just get my head around, get all that okayed. 6 months ago, we finally launched around the world. End of last year, we did a soft launch, but officially started doing a lot of demos and projects around Australia. So I did a road show for Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, because the whole idea was people knew, my clients, that I'm doing this, but it's about videos don't do justice for it. So they have to see it in action.
Yeah.
And there weren't enough opportunities to showcase that in action. So we did that. And then obviously for me, the hardest part was to educate the clients, not to showcase the technology and build it up. One of the first things is the cost. We did the first van setup, developed it, realized not quite right. Okay, let's do the second one. So it is expensive. Somebody has to go through that pain. And I did that. Now we've got 3 vans, 3 drones, fully kitted out, looks amazing. A lot of investment. So, you know, hopefully in the next few months, it pays back.
Look, I've got absolutely no doubt it is. And even if you're the earliest adopter of this type of technology, and specifically the use, how you're using drones, because I was reading a LinkedIn post today where someone sort of said that the use of drone is going to triple in Australia in the coming years. And if you look at the CASA, we were talking about how many registered businesses, pilots are there. I think it's something like 2,500 when I last checked, but it's probably even more now.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, look, it's the CASA is obviously inundated with the applications coming in, because I know behind the scene they talk amount of applications going in. The industry is just starting, oh, I want to be part of this. You know, I don't want to miss out. So the FOMO is kicking in, because it's especially from businesses. Last year when I was talking about it to people, there were still skeptics. Said, oh, I don't know about this going to work. You know, how does it clean? It may not clean. But now to realize that, okay, the property owners, I'm not talking about the cleaning companies or the facility managers, but the actual property owners are starting to act, because they, whether you like it or not, the risks of doing any high risk work on a building does not just sit with the contractor that's doing it. It basically has a follow-on effect all the way to the property owners, the facility managers, the head contractors, and the contractor. So they know that the risk is there, number one, so they know it's going to be eliminated. Number two, they know it's going to be quicker, so less disruption to their tenants. And the third part is then they're going to be a bit cheaper as well. So it's all of these put together. They are making the change. So all the other companies are now sort of rushing. The amount of phone calls I get, hey, do you sell franchise? Can we buy one of the drones off you? We provide a service. I want to activate the market first before we go into the franchise sort of mode.
Yeah. Well, you can always say yes. You can hire us and we'll come and you can have a profit split. That's how it's going to work initially, just to make sure. Because I think, again, nothing worse than having this technology. And I was talking about social robots yesterday in another conversation, where robots were bought and then, you know, big hype around it. And where the robots now, they're sitting in a cupboard like that. That is the worst thing that can happen for the robotics industry per se, and what to do with a robot. Then rather give it away and just say, no, I don't have a robot anymore.
And look, I completely agree with that. And I had a demonstration just a couple of days ago, and I was telling the whole crowd that was there, it was the industry leaders were in there. And I said, companies like FAMASO, KTV, we can bring you the technology as an innovation, because innovation talk is cheap. People will talk about it. The companies like us are putting everything on the line financially to bring this technology to you. Unless leaders like you accept this technology, innovation is dead. Within 12 months, if this technology doesn't get accepted by leaders, it's finished. Because if you're going to wait for somebody else to do first, there's always going to be somebody waiting for the next person. So I said, act, become the first ones to do it, and make sure this technology innovation actually not just survives, but thrives. So
you know,
they all understood.
This is the weirdest thing that Australians do. Where is it being used in Australia? Well, for heaven's sake, if you don't take a punt and use it and show how innovative it's never going to be used. This is the weirdest question that people get asked, especially around robotics.
Absolutely. And you are 100%, because I've been doing it so many demonstrations for so many months, that one of the biggest challenges is they all want it. They all really love the technology. They want to do it. But bottom line is, when is that purchase order? When is that contract coming in? You know, that's what matters. Talking is lovely. You can do a lot of work. But that's what's the hardest part in Australia, what I find, is because KTV is across 65 countries. So we obviously were the first adopters in the first 5 countries where Australia was. Europe is so far advanced with clients, with properties, with airports. Everybody's taken on board the actual technology. In fact, some places they've even banned cleaning with high-risk work. The drones have to be first, and then if you can't do it with drones, then do it with other methods. So in Australia, it's always been a challenge. What I found is education to the clients to say what it is that it can be done. But number 2 is actually encourage them. I have to constantly encourage them to say, adopt this technology. It's not adopt FAMASO or KTV, adopt the technology, because it needs to happen. It's making the world a better place and a safer place.
Of course. And when I refer to a type of personality of a person cleaning the windows, it's extremely dangerous work.
Yes.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you be using a drone if it's already been proven that it's effective and it does as good or maybe a better job?
I mean, look, one of the first questions when I had a Channel 9 News interview in MCG when we did last year, the demonstration, the first question was asked was, does this mean all the rope access industry is going to lose their jobs? I said, absolutely not. In fact, there is enough shortage of rope access people already. So why would you not train them and reduce their risk? Because rope access is a physical work. There's a limited age bracket. It's about 40s or whatever, and they stop. They can't keep going off the buildings again and again. But what happens to those individuals? They still got amazing capability to manage major projects. Imagine them, they're all becoming drone pilots and still doing the same work and understand the risk element on top of that. So it is it's a no-brainer, really, Nicci. It has to happen. It's not an if, it's just a matter of when.
So the types of facades that you can use, like size, talk us through those sort of practicalities.
So in Australia at the moment, the rule applies to about 120 meters of height. You can't go any above 120 meters. You can apply for it, and then you can get an approval from CASA. That's a process that takes a while. But you can do that. It's about 40 story building. You can do that. We can do daytime work, not nighttime. The facade types, we can do all types of facades. So glass facade or concrete facade, as well as you've got a metal facade as well. The drone has a lot of different capabilities, different type of nozzles. So some buildings we've done a few where you have a sunshade in front of the glass. So there is a bit of a gap, about half a meter or a meter from the glass to the sunshade. Most buildings like that can't be cleaned properly, because you can either not clean the sunshades or you can't clean the glass, where the drones have the capability of going to different nozzles so they can actually clean the facade and glass. So, it's all building facade can be cleaned, but the difference is not all buildings facade are perfect for drones. Even though I'm not talking about this type of facade, the style of building. For example, some buildings has got power lines on one side of the building. Some buildings are on tram lines just next to that, or train, or highway, or there is directly on the road. Those areas can't be cleaned. So because there is not enough exclusion zone allowed on the ground. So people who think that, okay, we can just take this drone and do it, it's a wrong way to look at it, because drone is not the only solution for cleaning buildings. Drone is a solution. It's like a method to clean them. It's not the holy grail. So that's the difference with, I think, people need to sort of learn about it.
Listen, and I think if you're providing this as a service to them to come in and say they've got an existing window cleaning service that you go, well, in combination with the two of you, or you do it and you bring one of your I'd say your typical window cleaner that's going to scale the building, and then you deploy drones on the other side where they're not needed. So a perfect combination.
I agree. And that's what I encourage a lot of window cleaning companies when I officially went out and they came and saw me. One of the difficult part was instead of being a collaborative approach, a lot of them felt the fear of we will potentially take their contract away. The important part was, this isn't about taking somebody's project. It's about work collaboration. Okay, we can do the drones. You have the window cleaning aspect, but you cannot do all the work for the drones because you don't know it. Why don't you keep your existing contract, but partnership with FAMASO and KTV and say, we'll go in with a client and say, we'll do, 50% of the work with drones. Suddenly there's a savings for the client, risk reduction for you, and the drone industry starts to get activated. So it is, in theory, a perfect application, but in practical, I think it hasn't been adopted well with that industry in a way. Let's partner up, and but what they're doing is trying to get their own drone to do the work. And it's not as easy as just buying a drone and let's start cleaning tomorrow.
No, I've seen your trucks. They're very sophisticated pieces of technology, if I can call it that, and it's very, very well set up.
Yeah, and it's cost a lot too. So I think everybody will always look at the return on investment when they go in. In an investment like that, they'll think about, okay, it's too much money. How am I going to make? How long it's going to take me to make it? Let me start with one drone and a little setup if I can, so reduce my cost. But where it comes in with individuals who are investing a lot of money into the van and setup, they just got to understand that drone is not the only drone. Is you can operate the drone, fantastic, you can learn that. But cleaning a building needs a lot of understanding of applications of what are the risks that you do, what kind of access levels you need to have, where you're going to clean, what areas are better to put high pressure, where do you put low pressure of a building, where is a chemical treatment required, what are the risk assessment of a building itself before you turn up. And I think if a building can't be cleaned with a drone completely, well, you need to have an in-house team of rope access. If you don't have an in-house team, you have to go partner up or subcontractor work to somebody else. And then the client, you cannot turn around and tell the client, by the way, I'll just do 10% of your building. Why don't you get somebody else to do 90%, or the vice versa? And the clients will, well, I've paid for my building to be clean. That's what I want. I want a service. So I think that's a knowledge the industry needs to still acquire, but they'll probably learn as they're going along and stumble across.
So FAMASO is actually the perfect one-stop service for people wanting window service, because you've got your climbers that they can do the work anywhere, and they know the buildings, and they would be obviously. I'm leading up to, have you retrained any of them to become pilots? Because that's just a given. They've already done window cleaning, so they already know the lay of the land, and that would just be a natural transfer of experience.
Absolutely. So instead of me recruiting new people in the business for pilots, what I've done is I've trained my existing team to be pilots, upskill them, because I reached out to a few of them and said, hey, what are your thoughts? What do you feel like doing in future? This is an opportunity coming up. Are you keen? Some of them put their hands up straight away. They say, absolutely. I've been a drone enthusiast. I've been flying a little, drone around. I would love to be part of it. And now these guys are obviously, they knew cleaning really well. So they know cleaning of the building, understand the risk assessment, because our risk assessment is compliance is number one, because we have to be very compliant with everything we do with high risk. And the drone just comes in nicely, and they're good with mechanical. They know how to, machine if something happens, how to fix it, and then they learn the drone. So it was a pleasure to see the internal team get upskilled and to go out and do the work. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. And I mean, again, going to the often thrown out statement, oh, robotics are going to displace people. In fact, no, you're upskilling people. And as you've mentioned, when you hit the age of 40, like that's about a use by date for people doing that type of work, then they can just automatically flip into, well, we're doing the drones now.
Absolutely. And not only that, but you go on a building, and if the building has 50% drones, there's no reason why the same crew can go in, do 50% drones, and then finish that and then do the rope access work. And so that way it's consistent work for them a long term. And, and obviously if they are beyond their physical capacity to do the rope access, they have knowledge to manage a project. So then the younger guys can come in and do the rope access bit.
Yeah. So KTV is now in 65 countries, which is absolutely amazing. How would you say Australia is adopting compared to other countries?
So other countries has basically gone quite quicker and faster, especially Europe. Has adopted this technology like no tomorrow, because they're just going harder. Obviously, it helps because the CASA regulation or civil aviation in their country has got more people in the team to be able to approve my applications to catch up with the technology. With Australia, there's two folds. Obviously, there is a lot of applications in civil aviation which take a while to get approved. So that's one backlog. But the other thing is the clients, the building owners, building management companies, they once again, they want this technology, but adopting is not a quick turnaround. And the thing is, okay, you can wait for 6 months, 12 months before you try and do a comparison for another company. The reality is the longer in Australia, it takes so much longer for them to wait and make a decision rather than say, let's just take this on board, adopt the technology. So I think I found that a little bit slower in Australia compared to other countries because we all talk, different countries talk.
Yeah.
And that's been slightly a bit, I guess, not ideal because you've spent so much time and effort and you wanted to sort of adopt. And almost, I expected a few years ago that this technology would take off, pardon the pun, but but it didn't take off as fast as I thought it would. But it's actually now the tide is changing. So the last few months, we've just seen the actual messaging coming out from the clients is changing. They're being more open, more excited about it. Maybe because it's October, November, December coming up to that summer season of cleaning windows and facade, and they're really getting into it.
Now, you focused on industrial and commercial. Do you do residential?
We don't do residential for drones. Residential, if there is some request from maintenance cleaning every now and then, we would do it. Our focus is mainly on commercial. But the drones is far away from being residential at the moment because until last few years, obviously, it's been in defense, agriculture, and all that stuff. Now it's coming into facility services, which is more sort of metro urban areas. Residential is quite a distance away before the drones can be used for that. So that's something another couple of years, I would say at least.
Okay, but why? Is it because of CASA regulation or just?
A bit of both, because CASA regulation is definitely number one. That is going to take a while for them to adopt that drone technology to be flying around people everywhere. Because residential means you are flying literally with people in the next house, people walking outside. You cannot have a big exclusion zone. And then to clean the drone, what are you going to clean? Potentially solar panels on the roof. And some large residential buildings, residential houses. But low-level residential is no point because the drones are not ideal for that. It's only for the roof and stuff that's on higher than normal.
All right. So you've also got India's distributorship of KTV. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so July last year, I went to Norway because 2022, I signed up. A year later, I thought I should go and have a look if they actually exist because I hadn't actually started the whole project in Australia. I said it'd be amazing to be
I want to see your office. Where are you?
It'd be amazing to be conned, after the turn up and say, by the way, there is a board, KTV. No one there. So my wife and kids were traveling around Europe. So I said, I'll come, we'll spend a couple of weeks and then we'll go to Norway and catch up and look at the whole setup. It was amazing. And actually they didn't know at the time that I was actually born in India and my background was Indian. I've been there, 20 years and then I've come to Australia. And so when I found out and the conversation sort of led to one on the other, and I said, have you got India signed up? I said, no, we haven't got India signed up. I said, okay. So then I went home that evening in an apartment with my wife and said, by the way, you know how we're still waiting to be either in a penthouse or under the bridge. I said, we're still on the cusp of either one of them. How about I buy India as well? Because if anything will change, I know India is going to be a huge democracy, obviously, and a huge potential for drones. So by the end of second day, we already shaken hands and bought India. And within a couple of weeks, I had paid them their money. So that way they felt secured. And I knew that because of the cultural understanding I've got in the Western country and the Indian culture, that it was I just felt good. It was a perfect fit for me. So I ended up buying it. And then now I'm starting to plan India launch. 2025 for India is going to be huge because it is one of the biggest countries that is really pushing hard for drones. A few challenges because of the regulations internally about the drones and stuff, but every country has that. But I do think it's going to be a big impact when I'm out there next year.
Number one, congratulations. And I think what's going to work really well in your favor is when this question pops up, so where's it been done in Australia? You can go, well, actually, I'm doing this in India already, and here's some videos of what I've done. And yeah, look, I think you've got a huge year in 2025.
Yes. I mean, in fact, you're spot on. People are in India asking me the question now. I said, hey, what have you done? What kind of experience do you have? What kind of work do you do? I said, well, I don't have to ask anybody. I do work in Australia. These are the clients. These are the opportunities. And in fact, people that are the companies that I've got relationship with in Australia, they are international, some of them. So they've referred me to their counterparts in India and said, why don't you speak to this, my sort of CEO in India, and then basically start conversation on national level as opposed to one side. So they don't have to be proven about my experience and skill set. We already past that. We're just talking about how do we mobilize the project.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking of all sorts of other uses for drones that would need a liquid application. So, I mean, you're using water here, but it could potentially be something else if you needed to, going down the line as you expand.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, the upgrades coming up in the next few months. One of them's already out, which is a thing called sensor. So the facade, if you imagine the facade, some of them are fancy facade. They're not flat and straight. So the drone allows the sensors to be at a specific distance from the facade, and it sticks to that. It basically does not go forward or back. It basically gives you that ability to have the consistent water pressure on the facade. That sensor also now has become the first one KTV has done in the world. Is basically automated the whole cleaning. So the pilot basically gets the drone up, manages one point of a facade, and then clicks another point of a facade, and then starts automatic cleaning. The drone's basically just going around cleaning one side to the other. The third coming up is an inspection with the same drone. So you're doing thermal imaging and inspection. So you're not providing bring another drone for different service. It's the same client. You're harvesting the same client with more services for them. And the final, which you pointed out about the painting, about the actual liquid. So the guys are testing out painting with the drone. So which is quite an amazing, change in itself. Don't ask me how. My job isn't about how the technology guys are doing all of that. My job is to deliver the service when the technology is ready.
When it's ready. Very exciting space. Mikhil, I just wish you, obviously, just congratulations. And I know this is going to be a hit once, it's that tipping point. I always remember this guy on YouTube, which is now a gazillionaire because he's got that many. I think you and I spoke when we caught up that for the first year, he basically had no one look at his YouTube channel. It was every day he was putting content out there. And then suddenly a year, I don't know, it just hit that magic inflection point and it took off. And this guy is a creator second to none now. And I think with any technology, it's the same thing. There's a bit of a tipping point that you just plug away. And then suddenly it's as though it's always been there.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is, as I said to a lot of clients when I talk to them, this isn't a technology that you can ignore. This is here to stay. It is an Uber of high risk industry. It is a disruptive technology. Whether you like it or not, it is here, it's coming. The best bit that you can do is be an early adopter and take it on board and be the innovator, be the leader in the industry. I think so. The leaders are the ones that I'm working with now. So hopefully, with your podcast out there, more leaders will come on board and say, let's partner up.
Oh, most definitely. When's your next demo? Do you have a demo day planned for Melbourne in the next few months?
Look, we've got work on and off happening all the time. It's the best way for them to is reach out to a KTV team or the FAMASO team. They both come to the same channel. And we can tell them where the demos are, where the actual projects are. They can come and watch. Some very high profile projects are coming up soon. So it'll be quite amazing for them to watch. But more importantly, the best place for them is social media, LinkedIn. I've got a profile there, including the FAMASO profile. Follow that. That'll really keep them up to date what's happening.
Fantastic. And in closing, do you have any other insights that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with the audience?
Look, one of the things I wanted to say to the audience is, you know, first time I've come across yourself, Robotics Australia, I've no idea. You know, it was like a kid that's just fumbling around somewhere in robotics or technology space, and suddenly I come across Nicci. It's like, okay, fantastic. I wanted to say how amazing what you do for the robotics, for the actual technology companies around the world, in Australia specifically. It's really humbling to see that, because obviously you are very relentless in how you push everything across to the board. For me, before even you knew me, there was an opportunity that you gave me to work, and we did a project of tunnel in Melbourne. So I just wanted to acknowledge and say thank you. That was fantastic, and I really appreciated that.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. And you can see I'm speechless. I don't know what to do with a compliment this morning on my podcast, but thank you. I do appreciate it. And I am a little bit relentless, as people have found out when they speak to me. I immediately go, why aren't you a network member? But listen, I look forward to it. I'm going to come to your next demo, wherever it is, and we're going to get some video footage that we're going to get out on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. So wishing you all the best.
Looking forward to it, and it was absolutely a pleasure to have this podcast with you.
Thanks, Mikhil. And to our audience out there, I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Very interesting. Reach out to Mikhil on LinkedIn if you're not already connected with him there. And I thank you for your company, and I look forward to it again soon.